You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this online training by Crowder Agriculture. It is a great pleasure having you on board. Crowder Agriculture works closely with public and private sectors in Nigeria, also providing services related to agribusiness. As an agribusiness consultant, we map, monitor, survey, market and formulate strategies of increasing sales in all kinds of agro products. Our teams of business consultants have experience in delivering practical agro-business solutions. With a detailed knowledge of all types of farming systems, we help in development of business plans and improving the efficiency of a current system. Our plans are based on practical and informed knowledge of farming and rural activities. Also, we advise clients on strategic business planning and performance monitoring service in exploring their options, benchmark performance, reducing costs, increasing income, and help to secure long-term business viability strategic business reviews. Our product and services include farming, land and ICT consulting services, agro cooperatives for funding and support, farmers agent and representative services, as well as smart climate agricultural consultancy service. Our service focus on profitable and sustainable farming system that follows the best practice and commercial principles of business, such as soil, air, and the environment. We also keep up to date with government policies in relation to agricultural and investment support scheme. Today's topic is our mitigating the impact of COVID-19 pandemic through smart animal husbandry. This training will coach the trainee on possible ways of reducing the adverse effects of COVID-19 on their livelihood and come out very strong during the post-COVID-19. The objectives of this training is to enable our highly esteemed participants to make the right choice of production system, to know the requirements of farm site selections, know the necessary housing equipment needed for poultry farm, as well as understanding the health management and biosecurity in poultry farm. Following are the housekeeping rules. Please kindly mute yourself and put off your videos. This will curtail any form of disruption of the training. You can tender your questions or suggestions in the chat box, indicating your name, your organization, so that when you make a comment or ask questions, we are able to identify you. Please note, after today's training, a link will be sent to you. The link is to conduct a test for today's training. Please do endeavor to check your mail while a link will be sent via Crowder mail to all participants. Please try and participate in this test that will be coming up after this section. With this, I would like to invite the trainer for today's event to make his presentation in the person of Dr. Abdulaziz. He is a breeder by profession with a broad knowledge on agribusiness. He is a master trainer on agricultural development projects, and currently he is the general manager, Crowder Agriculture. Dr. Abdulaziz, over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my singular honor and privilege to be with you this afternoon to discuss this timely topic, mitigating the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic through smart animal husbandry. There is no doubt COVID-19 has caused more harm than good. and it has come to stay with us. So it is very important we look at efforts on how to mitigate its effect. Today we are going to base our animal husbandry on poultry production, since we understood that it needs lesser investment to kickstart. So I will know the situation on ground. So many people have lost their jobs. So many people, their livelihood has been threatened. So it is now paramount to see how people can be able to sustain even beyond the COVID-19. Poultry farming in Nigeria is already an established and profitable business idea. The economy of Nigeria is mostly dependent on farming or agriculture sector. Poultry are most often not considered as livestock, but they are the major sector of the animal agriculture. Poultry production can be economically rewarding to any individuals or body because of its ability or ramification of human existence. There is no religion barrier, no cultural barrier, and what have you. So poultry is acceptable across all culture. So no limitation on its practices. Poultry farming has significant contribution to make as regard income as well as nutritional value of Nigerians. As we know, poultry has low cholesterol content in it, so therefore making it meat to be very okay for all ages. So there's no limitation, and the meat from poultry are always white meat, so which is very good even for the aged people. Okay, so it is considered to be a means of livelihood and a way of achieving a reasonable level of economic independence in Nigeria. Poultry industry is the most commercialized and fastest growing segment in the animal husbandry subsector. But Nigeria is currently spending over $2 billion annually on imported frozen meat, consumes 1.5 million tons of chicken annually. However, only 30% are produced here in Nigeria and 70% all are what exported. All are imported now. So it is now paramount for us to look at how are we going to reduce the import rate so that we can be able to meet our market demand. There is still a lot that needs to be done in the poultry market in Nigeria to drive more production, to curb the importation of frozen chicken into the country. Reports have shown that many people have been turned into millionaires. So if you're a beginner and want to start poultry farming, then try to learn more, read more, attend more trainings, read books, magazines, websites, and then try as much as possible to visit farms that carry out poultry production, as this will broaden your knowledge and understanding on the investments you are going to put in. Now, what is the purpose of poultry production? The primary purpose is for dietary and economic reasons. In fact, poultry production is unique in that it offers the highest turnover rate and the quickest return to investment outlay in livestock production. It is only in poultry production whereby you can invest in less than 2 months, you start harvesting. Okay, unlike sheep and goats, where you have to wait for months, unlike cattle, where you have to wait for years. However, in poultry, the return investment is minimal. The time required is very, very low. So you can even have 4 to 5 time activity in a year, which makes it a very good investment to key into. And poultry production has no doubt created employment and is still creating more employment for those people who are seeking for jobs. Now let's look at the merits of poultry production. As I said, it has short generation interval and rapid fecundity. That is highly fertile. Okay, it produces high. okay, and in shortest interval, and I mentioned 2 months, okay, and some people can even go as low as 4 to 5 weeks in selling out their stocks to have their income. So broilers can be harvested at 8 weeks or less, while pullets can lay eggs at 5 months old and continue to lay profitably for 18 months. However, as the time goes, there's a decline in egg production. The space requirement for rearing is small, and then low capital is needed to start up your poultry business. Now let's look at the type of enterprise in poultry production. There are 3 existing enterprises in poultry production that farmers can take advantage of. The first one is the broiler production, the second one, the table egg production, and then the third one, breeding and hatching operation. As a prospective investor, you can decide to limit yourself to one of the practices. Okay, you can either decide to go into the value chain of service, veterinary product supply, okay, manufacturing of poultry equipment, processing and marketing of poultry product, etc. Or you may decide to combine both the trading and production, which works well in both the poultry production. I will still have some integrated practices that can be carried out. You can carry out poultry with crop production, poultry with fish production, poultry alongside feed milling, with it processing, with additional value chain that you can take advantage of. The major advantage of such integrated projects is the reliability of sources and supply of inputs. It also promotes the enforcement of quality control measures in the production of feeds for the poultry. Now, if you have control over your input, automatically you can be assured of the quality of what you are going to produce. Most at times, let's take for instance the maize that produce the carbohydrate for this poultry. If it happens to be contaminated, okay, with aflatoxin, and if this poultry feeds on this maize that are highly contaminated with aflatoxin, it causes diseases, okay, and leads to high death rate. So it is very important to have control over the quality of the feeds you are using, over the quality of input you are using in the production of your feed. Now let's look at the practices under layer production. Commercial hens usually begin laying eggs at 16 to 21 weeks of age, although production gradually declines soon after from approximately 25 weeks of age. This means that in many countries, by approximately 72 weeks of age, flocks are considered economically unviable and are slaughtered after approximately 12 months of egg production, although chickens will naturally live for 6 or more years in some countries. Once the layers can no longer feed themselves, why feeding them? Why wasting their resources? Okay, so it's better you lay them off so that you can be able to restock others, because once they've started the egg production, they should be able to feed themselves. So from the egg they produce, they should be able to buy the feed that feeds them. So once they can no longer meet to such requirement, it is better you lay them off and then restock new ones. So, and the environmental conditions are often automatically controlled in egg laying system. For example, the duration of the light phase is initially increased to prompt the beginning of egg laying at 16 to 20 weeks of age, and then mimics summer day length, which stimulates the hens to continue laying eggs all year round. Normally poultry lay their eggs during the warm months, okay? So it is better now to have a controlled environment where you can now make them feel as if it is still the same period they are into. So don't allow it to be too cold, okay, and they shouldn't be too hot, but it should be in the room temperature, whereby they should be able to give you better production. And also there are some species of layers that can lay up to 300 eggs a year. This is lovely. So whenever you want to choose a species of layers, look for those ones that have longevity in production. Now we have the free range system practice in layers production. Free range poultry farming allows chickens to roam freely for a period of the day, although they are usually confined in sheds at night to protect them from predators or kept indoors if the weather is particularly bad. Let's say, for instance, if you are practicing free range and we happen to find ourselves in the harmattan season, you know, the weather is not too conducive for them. So if you allow them to come out, it's going to cause a great mayhem to them. So it is advisable you leave them to be locked inside pending when the weather is clear and what's convenient for them to be able to carry out their normal life activity. For instance, in the United Kingdom, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DFRA, states that a free-range chicken must have daytime access to open air runs during at least half of its life. Unlike in the United States, this definition also applies to free-range egg-laying hens. The European Union regulates marketing standards for egg farming, which specifies a minimum condition for free-range eggs that hens have continuous daytime access to open-air runs, except in the case of temporary restrictions imposed by veterinary authorities. The essence of this restriction cannot be overemphasized because calcium is needed, okay, for better bone formation. And the more they are exposed to sunlight, it gives them a better health, whereby if humans consume this product, it's very healthy for them. And you know, it's sometimes in Nigeria whereby we don't normally take such things serious. Things that affect the gene can also be translated into humans. Let's say, for instance, the food we eat affects us, right? So if we want to produce quality chickens for the public, because despite the fact we want to make this money, we still want to maintain the good health of the public. So we need to look at what management practices are we going to employ to be able to sustain good health for the nation. It shouldn't be that we are just looking at the developed world controlling, regulating how they produce their own poultry. But however, how can we also, within our own conscience, try to give out a better product to our customers? There is a saying that the life expectancy in this generation has declined drastically. Yes, it has declined drastically due to the nature of our feeding habits. So the more we try to correct our feeding habits, the more we try to correct our production system, then the better longevity of life we are going to have. So it is important as an entrepreneur, as somebody who wants to go into poultry production, to have it at the back of your mind that you are going to make money, at the same time you are going to render social services to humanity. So try as much as possible to deliver that product which is good, with high quality, and can sustain good health for the public. The free-range farming of egg-laying hens is increasing its share of the market, okay? Because in the United Kingdom, they prefer it even more because it's more healthier, more hygienic. So if we can practice the free-range in Nigeria with better standard, I think we're going to have a good return on investment. Despite the fact the growth rate might be a little bit slow, but however, we have certified our conscience that we're giving out to the public what is good for them, and our reward, as they say, will be in heaven. The free-range system needs a suitable land with a good drainage to minimize worms and coccidial oocytes. Suitable production from prevailing winds, good ventilation, access and protection from predators. Excessive cold and damp can have a harmful effect on the animals and their productivity. Free-range farmers have less control than farmers using cages in what food their chickens eat, which can lead to unreliable productivity, though supplementary feeding reduces this uncertainty. In some farms, the manure from free-range poultry can be used to benefit crops. The benefits of free-range poultry farming for natural behaviors such as pecking, scratching, foraging, and exercise outdoors. Both intensive and free-range farming have animal welfare concerns. Cannibalism, feather pecking, and vent pecking can be common, prompting some farmers to use beak trimming as a preventive measure, although reducing stocking rates would eliminate these problems. Diseases can be common and the animals are vulnerable to predators. In Southeast Asia, a lack of disease control in free-range farming has been associated with outbreak of avian influenza. Despite the advantages associated with free-range, we can still see the disadvantages in it, but however, the advantages outweigh it with disadvantages. The disadvantages go in line with your return on investment. However, if you look at the quality of the product you are giving out to the masses, I think it is worth using. Now, there is a system also called the yarding system. Most of the times it is being confused with the free range. Okay, but however, this system is actually a separate method by which a hutch and fenced-off area outside are combined when farming poultry. The distinction is that free-range poultry are either totally unfenced or the fence is so distant that it has little influence on their freedom of movement. So yarding is a common technique used by farmers in the northeastern world. The birds are released daily from hutches or coops. These hens usually lay eggs either on the floor of the coop or in baskets if provided by the farmer. This husbandry technique can be complicated if used with rooster, mostly because of the aggressive behavior. So now, if you are, for instance, in Nigeria, we can decide to use the yarding system since maybe we might be limited with resources to carry out the free range. So the yarding system too can also give you a good result as compared a good result in terms of quality of the meat you produce as compared to that of the free range. Now let's look at the battery cages in layers production. These are small cages usually made of metal in modern systems, housing 3 to 8 hens. The walls are made of either solid metal or mesh, and the floor is sloped wire mesh to allow the faces to drop through and eggs to roll onto an egg collection conveyor belt. Water is usually provided by overhead nipple system and food in a trough along the front of the cage, replenished at regular intervals by a mechanical system. Battery cages are arranged in long rows as multiple tiers, often with cages back to back, hence the term. Within a single barn, there may be several floors containing battery cages, meaning that a single shed may contain many tens of thousands of hens. Light intensity is often kept low to reduce feather pecking and vent picking. What are the benefits associated with battery cages? Among the benefits associated with battery cages are the birds are easily cared for, floor-laid eggs, which are expensive to collect, are eliminated, eggs are much cleaner, capture at the end of lay is expedited, generally less feed is required to produce eggs, more hens floor space, Internally, internal parasites are more easily treated and labor requirements are generally much reduced. If you look at the benefits of battery cages, of course, you know it has more benefit as against the deep litter system. But however, if you don't have the resources to kickstart using the battery cages, you can start with the deep litter system. By the time your income improves, then to the battery system. Now let's look at the production system for broilers. These are mainly made for what? For their meat. Okay, they are floor raised or litter, such as wood shaving, peanut shells, and rice hulls. Indoors in climate controlled housing under modern farming method, meat chickens reared indoors with slaughter weight at 5 to 9 weeks of age, as they have been selectively bred to do so. In the first week of a broiler's life, it can grow up to 300% of its body size. Please, if you are going into broilers production, don't go with this popular saying of people saying my broiler has to be big. You know, because if you try to sell at 5 feet, they'll tell you that you are losing money. No, you are not losing money. You are even the one gaining. At 5 weeks, most hotels, most restaurants even prefer the ones at 5 because it's easier for them to buy at cheaper rate, of which at these ages, their level of feeding is still reduced. So therefore, your expenses on feeding will be drastically reduced, and even though you are selling at 800 or 700 naira per bed, you still stand the chances of making more return on investment than somebody leaving it for 9 to 10 weeks of age. Okay, so now the broilers are not raised in cages, not at all. They are not raised in cages. So don't go because maybe you look at the benefit of cages system, you feel like you're going to lay broilers in them. No, they are not raised in cages because remember, they are raised in large open structures known as grow-out houses. The farmer receives the birds from the hatchery at 1 day old. A grow-out consists of 5 to 9 weeks according to how big the kill plant wants the chicken to be. So try as much as possible to have your market ready and understand the preference of your buyer, most especially hotels, eateries. They prefer, the smaller ones because it's easier for them. If they buy it at 800 naira, they can easily sell it at 1,500 or 2,000 naira. They wouldn't want to go through the stress of coming to buy it from you at the rate of 2,500 and be battling to sell it for 3,000 naira. Okay, and even you allow them to stay for that long, if they are coming to purchase this particular product, the price will not be good enough. The differences will not by just being 100 or 50, of which what is the amount of feed you have used so far to be able to achieve that growth. So let's try as much as possible to dispose our broilers at their early weeks of table size. The houses are equipped with mechanical system to deliver feed and water to the birds. They have ventilation system and heaters that function as needed. The floor of the house is covered with bedding materials consisting of wood chips, rice hulls, or peanut shells. Please don't be discouraged with the facilities in the housing system. If you don't have what it takes to produce these facilities, you can still go the local way. Okay, you can still go the local way pending when, because consistency matters. Okay, if you are consistent in the business, your capital base will grow. So from there, all these facilities can be put in place. So in some cases, they can be grown over dry litter or compost because dry bedding helps maintain flock health. Most grow-out houses have enclosed watering system, nipple drinkers, which reduce spillage. So please try as much as possible not to allow the floor to be wet because it makes them to be prone to diseases. Now, let us look at the requirement for farm site selection. A proper knowledge and understanding of the following requirements are necessary for anyone who intends to invest in livestock production to maximize profit. First and foremost, you need to what? Understand the environment. Okay, you need to understand the environment. You need to choose the appropriate environment for your housing. Let me say it this way, please. Don't go and establish your farm site on a rented land, because remember, you are going to carry out capital project on that land, and if you are exiting the land, the landlord might not be able to pay for those things, and you end up losing them. So try as much as possible, even though it will take you into the farthest distance, to get a palatable environment for your poultry. Please do so. Okay, the environment should be far away from people's settlement, because as we all know, poultry have offensive odor, because their droppings, as we all know, they are very high in ammonia. So therefore, with just a little flow of air, the whole environment can be littered with their smells. So for the health benefit of the community, please try as much as possible not to situate your farm very close to settlement, because if the people don't have the power to sue you, okay, then your own conscience should judge you, because these people, if you are the one who is in that community, you wouldn't want somebody to come and situate such type of investment which will be detrimental to your health, and will lead to what great inconvenience. So let's try as much as possible to have an appropriate environment. Then now we should try as much as possible to have what? Utilities. Public amenities are very important. For instance, there should be electricity or water supply. Okay, if your farm is located very far from the town and it will cost you a lot of money to generate electricity, then you have to provide alternative source of power. You can provide solar, of which solar is now becoming relatively cheap. You can also provide generators, however, not the types that emit high carbons, because those that emit high carbons can also be detrimental to the health of your stocks. And don't use a generator that's very noisy, okay, because it will affect the psychological health-being of the poultry. So try as much as possible to see that all these factors are well checked. Okay, so now the public amenities should also be somehow very close to you. Let's say like boreholes, okay? Create boreholes, and if there are tap water, you can channel them into the farm. Okay, so you have to consider the availability of these facilities in area where you have to decide to locate your poultry farm. If these facilities are not available, the cost of production will increase. However, you try as much as possible to reduce cost of production. And then secondly, we need accessible road. Accessible road is very, very important whenever you want to situate your farm. Don't go and situate your farm where in the rainy seasons you cannot access the farm. Or don't go and situate your farm in a dry season where you cannot access the farm because of the bunk density of soil, of sandy soil that will be on the road, that it will not be motorable. So try as much as possible to have a farm, to situate your farm where it has access road, because as an individual it is not easy for you to create. Try as much as possible to situate your farm where you can be able to access it, so for easy movement of inputs and for easy movement of output. If your farm is not accessible, then you stand at the risk of losing high on your investment. For instance, if there is an outbreak of disease in the farm, and maybe due to water, you cannot access the farm for 2 days. Before you come, the birds might have maybe 70 to 80% of them might have what been lost. So what are we saying? This will be what a great disaster to the investor. So don't be in a haste. According to your building, go to the area during the peak of rainy season because that is when you will know that this place is a place for me to stay or not. So the same thing should be applicable to your poultry, because they are also life just as our own life is. So we have to pay close attention to them whenever we're trying to situate their own house. As a business, okay, you should also have expansion plan. Okay, agri-businesses are beyond doubt expanding based enterprises. When managed efficiently, the farm should have lands that can accommodate expansion as business grows. You know, as I earlier mentioned, once you are consistent in poultry production, in 2-3 years, your housing might not be enough to house the birds you want to stock, because by now you must have gotten huge capitals to expand the business. So if maybe the place you went and situate this farm doesn't have lands to expand it's going to create a very big challenge for you for expansion. And if you try to change location, automatically it's going to affect the efficiency of your production. So we have to take care of our E's and T's to make sure that there's always an expansion plan for our poultry business. Knowledge and understanding of the in livestock to maximize profits. Please underline this word, maximize profit. So the environment, as we mentioned, the utilities, the road accessibility, and then the expansion plan. Okay? And now you need to look at the topography of the place. Okay, poultry farm should be located on a well-level ground, free from undulating and hills. No, it should be a well-leveled ground. And as we know, the soil should be a little bit sandy loam. Sandy loam soil is required for poultry housing, because the level of acidity is very, very reduced in sandy loam, and then their bug density is friendly. So, and their cracking nature is very, very less. So once you use the sandy loam, and then drainages on sandy loam is very, very cheap and easy to conduct. So the farm haven't understand the topography of the land, so it is very, very important to have a good drainage system, okay, that can drain out water away from the farm to prevent flooding. Okay, you should try as much as possible to understand how best the drainage should be situated. Now, prevailing wind and sunshine. This is very, very important. Okay, wind and direct sunshine adversely affects the health of the birds. As such, the building should be east-west of the farm. This will prevent direct sunlight and winds. Now, the waste management system is also among the requirement to consider. Okay, poultry waste should be properly cleaned from the pen and disposed properly. The droppings can be used for biogas and organic manure. Okay, you can decide to process this poultry waste by drying them off and then bagging them. It is now becoming a very good source of income for poultry farmers because of what its high demand for crop production. And among the factors to consider is what? Natural disasters. Okay, before establishing a poultry farm, it is important to ask about what? The history of the place for flooding, earthquake, tsunami, among others. This will enable the farmer to know the preventive measures to take to reduce the effects when it happens. Okay, but however, advisably, if a site is prone of flooding, after every year there is flooding, please just run away for your life, because floods are not easily controlled. Okay, so try as much as possible to have this information at your fingertips, as it will help you to guide your investment, so that you won't come and invest so much money into the capital aspect, the capital project aspect, and at the end of the day, flood will chase you away from such activity. And most importantly, again, it is good to look at the nature of the locals around where you want to establish your farm. Okay, are they problematic? Do they attack farms? Do they have history of theft? If they have history of theft, then you need to strategize on the security measures to be able to protect your investment, because one night attack can squander every effort you've made. So it is cheaper to make findings, to conduct feasibility studies when it occurs. Now, let us look at housing. This is one of the key aspects in poultry production. If you provide good housing for your birds, be rest assured that they will give you high productivity, therefore giving you high return on investment. Good housing is very important for commercial poultry farming. Housing system depends on the poultry breeds and farming method. As I've earlier mentioned, for broilers, okay, you can't use cage system for them. While for layers, preferably cage system is much preferred for layers. So now the production system or the breed of housing you are. So correct housing is vital to the success of livestock enterprise. Efficient house design is very important for large. There are basically two types of housing system in commercial poultry production, of which I have earlier mentioned the battery cage and the deep litter. So it now depends on your financial capability also. Okay, if you don't have the financial capability to use the battery cage, of course you can use a deep litter system. Whenever your capital base has been expanded, then you can try to reduce costs by adopting the battery cage system. Now let's look at the important reasons for housing. Protects from harsh weather conditions. As I've earlier mentioned, let's assume the weather is so hot, okay, if the weather is so hot, the housing will now provide a shade, okay, a shade for them. And if inside the housing is a little bit very hot again, we can introduce fans that will be able to control the weather in there. So try of it now to make it very convenient for them, okay, despite the harsh weather outside. And for instance, if we have again maybe Hamatan period where the dust is very, very humid, then we can produce what? We can produce a more covered housing for them. Okay, if the housing have maybe use mesh nets in constructing the houses, we can now what use trampolines or any waterproof stuff to protect the direct entrance of the dust into the housing, and also provision of warmth, most especially for layers production, since they need warm environments. Since they need warm environment to produce eggs, so it is very important to try to look at the temperature in their housing. Okay, if you go to the local environments, they use this mold system to build the housing of their beds. However, it is outdated, but to a bearable limit, it still gives the beds the warmth they deserve for continuous egg production. This reminds me, please, if you don't have the money, okay, to go into even the deep litter system, you don't have the full money, the full capital to establish a standard deep litter system, you can still borrow from the locals using the mold system to build the house, of which it is still also very okay in terms of providing good housing for the poultry. And also, the housing protects the birds from thieves. Whenever we mention thieves in poultry production, there comes in two sides. The thieves can be your staffs, and the thieves can be external, from external source, maybe the locals around or any other places. Now, how do you make this housing to be thief-proof in such a way that they will not be able to steal from your product? So many poultry investments has been liquidated as a result of the malpractice of the staffs. Some poultry houses will allow that, okay, if birds are dead, take them off the housing and dispose. Behold, every day if you visit your poultry farm, you notice that 10-20 birds are always dead. Okay, they will just cause artificial death for them, and the staff will just take them off. They are dead, I want to go and dispose them. No, make a stringent measures whereby even though there is a mortality in your beds, try as much as possible to create where they should be buried. They shouldn't leave the housing facility. This will go a long way to reduce the in-house thieving. Okay, and then for the external body, anybody who wants to come into the farm should have a track record and reason why he's coming and who is he coming to visit. It shouldn't be an inflow and outflow way of farm. No, it should be highly regimented. Okay, and there should be one entrance into the farmhouse. Don't create so many entrances, because securities are also human. Okay, there might be a time where they can be able to they'll just lax up before somebody can easily enter and cause me harm into your investment. Okay, investment are to be protected. Investment are to be loved the way we love our life. So we have to try as much as possible to protect them so that we will smile at the end of the day. And now it is among the benefits, the important reason for housing is easy control of the animals. Let's say, for instance, you want to fumigate the housing. You can easily move them to another apartment whereby you fumigate the house, or maybe there's a disease outbreak. Okay, it's easier for you now to identify the diseased bird and take it off the healthy birds. And it is also easy to keep animals in age groups, since we know feeding of poultry is in line with ages. Okay, so it is very easy for you to have them according to their age bracket so that they can be able to be fed effectively. Now, these are conditions necessary for the construction of housing. For you to go into construction of your housing, it should be what? It should be durable. At least the house should stay nothing less than 25 to 30 years. The housing of what? The poultry. It should stand not less than what? 25 to 30 years. So please, if you want to go into maybe bricks production, try as much as possible to have a solid foundation for your housing. Okay, solid foundation will guarantee you the durability of the housing. And secondly, the housing should be spacious. Okay, it is due to gaseous exchange, it is very important to have spaces for easy respiration. So if you overstock this poultry, they can easily be affected by diseases and what have you as a result of lack of space for them to meet up with their psychological state of health. And it is very important to have a well drained and easy to clean housing. Don't go and construct a house whereby you find it difficult to even clean. Maybe if you even stand inside, you'll not even be free. Okay, some people will just create some apartment of maybe 1 meter by 1 meter, and of which in that 1 meter by 1 meter, they are going to stock more than 20 beds in them. I wonder how this person is going to have the space to clean. I wonder how he's expecting to. Important again, the housing should be well lighted and ventilated. Okay, if you are constructing your poultry housing, don't build it completely. Okay, and if you are going to build it completely, then there should be spacious windows that will bring in enough light and ventilation into the housing. Or else, it is recommended you raise your building to 2 or 3 meters high, then use mesh wire to complete the building, as the case might be. So it is very important, and therefore, then light 24 hours. The more light you give to poultry, the better their feeding culture and the higher rate of conversion they have on what they feed. So there is no sleeping hour for poultry, provided they see light and they can see food. They'll see it too. So don't give that break of feeding for them. Ensure that temperature, relative air humidity, and gas concentration to be at the level that it will not harm the animals. Okay, don't allow the animals to be suffocating, because if you do this, you're going to pay a price in a hard way. So let's try as much as possible with, despite the fact we need high return on investment, we should also be considerate in how we stock our poultry. And the temperature, for you to understand the temperature system is very simple. If you come to a poultry house and you notice all of them are gathered in one place, then there's problem with the temperature of that housing. There and then you need to create more light for them so they can be able to expand and have better activity. Okay, and it should be have isolated, which should be okay. We should always have provisions for isolated pens, since most at times poultry diseases are transferable. in the morning, and no drastic effort was carried out to mitigate the spray. If you come back the next morning, I'm assuring you 90% to 100% of the birds will be affected by what? By chickenpox. More so, if you notice coccidiosis in your birds, try as much as possible to treat it. Once you identify, you can easily identify the birds that have already been drastically affected by going through their anus. You see some watery mucus around their anus, then just take them off. After taking them off, please don't leave the birds in that pen. Move the uninfected birds out, fumigate the house very well for at least 1 week, because coccidiosis, as we all know, it might not kill the bird immediately, but they can hardly increase in sizes. As they're eating, they're throwing it off. As they're eating, they're throwing it off. Okay, so it's hampered their conversion rate. So try as much as possible to see that there's provision for isolation. Now, what are the equipments required for poultry production? We have simple equipment that are needed, okay, for those of us who have intention to kickstart poultry production. Feeding trough and watering trough are needed. The feeding trough will be used to give them their feeds. Okay, and whenever you want to make use of the feeding trough, it shouldn't be at the basal water level. Try as much as possible to elevate it a little, whereby their legs cannot enter into the feed. Okay, so that they can only just be picking, because once their leg can touch the feed, they can easily contaminate it and lead to excess wastage of feed, and we know how expensive feed are. And also their watering trough also should be a little bit elevated, okay, so that they will not contaminate it as easy as possible. So now we also need shovels. Shovels are very important in poultry production. Okay, most especially if you want to change the litters in the housing, you use a shovel to gather them. Then you use the wheelbarrow, to transport it off the housing. And it is advisable, because everything about poultry, okay, is productive. Those the litters you are sweeping away, you are packing away, please don't go and throw them off. Okay, dry them, process them, sell them to farmers who are into tomato production or into maize production, because they are high, they are rich, okay, in ammonia. Therefore, once they have been introduced into the soil, they increase the nitrogen level of the soil. So therefore, they are a good source of fertility to the soil. So let's try as much as possible to also make it as an extra source of income for your production. So you also need a bucket, okay, that will enable you to transport feeds, to transport water into their feeders, since the feeders are not movable, okay. And you need a weighing balance scale. Okay, a weighing balance scale is very, very important. This will help you to track the weight of your poultry per day or per week, and also it will also assist you to track at what price should you be able to sell this particular product. Let's assume your poultry is weighing 3 kg. Okay, you won't go and be selling 3 kg at the rate of 1,000. You won't do that, right? So it's better for you to have a better understanding of the weight of your birds, because it's going to determine how you are going to negotiate the pricing. Despite the fact they have been stocked in the same day, okay, there may still vary in terms of their weight. Okay, so now if you are going to take them to the market, the ones that have the highest weight should be kept aside for better price, so that what it can be able to cover up for expenses and what have you, and we can smile to the bank if we have a proper production system. I also need brooms. Brooms are very important in poultry housing for cleaning of cobwebs, sweeping, and what have you. Then you need egg trays. The egg trays helps you to transport the eggs from the farm to the consumers. Okay, it protects the eggs from breakage. However, there are some rules to some damages, but if well packaged. So if you are going to package your egg, please, there shouldn't be above 10 in a cycle. Just package 10 in a cycle. So the weight will not be too much for the one that is under. Okay, but by the time you are overstocking them, then you stand the chance of making losses, because some people might be neglecting one. They say it's just 30 naira. Well, by the time you multiply 30 by 100, you know what we are talking about. 30 by 100, we are talking about 3,000. Okay, that is a big money, of which we can use to install more than 10 to 15 beds for a new cycle. So let's try as much as possible to reduce damages. Now, laying nests for poultry is also important. Okay, most deep litter system. If you notice our local chickens, if they want to lay eggs, the same thing is applicable to your layers. If they want to lay, especially in the deep litter system, they need an enclosure whereby they can go in and lay their eggs. And if you are using the deep litter system, it is advisable you visit the farm as early as possible in the morning and then by 12 noon in the afternoon, so that they will not destroy the eggs afterwards, after laying them. Now, among this is one of the most important equipment needed for poultry production, which is record keeping. Record keeping informs you of everything that is happening in the farm. It is with the help of record keeping that you'll be able to know what is the input you have put in, what is the output. Okay, am I making profit or am I making losses? Okay, and record keeping also helps you to expand the production base, by allowing investors to come in. By the time you have a proper record keeping and somebody wants to come and be a shareholder in your investment, he will be very confident, because he knows that there's a track record whereby he can be able to see what you have been doing over the years, and he can decide to put millions and billions of naira into poultry production, and by that time the story will not be the same. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very important to look at what the breeds we have. In Nigeria, we have two types of breeds: the indigenous breeds and the exotic breeds. The indigenous breeds are mainly of the Fulani and then the Yorubas. However, the Fulani chicken is a little bit larger as compared to the Yoruba chicken. And one of the interesting things about this poultry breed is that they have a frizzle naked, a frizzle naked genes. You see at their neck, there's no feather. Okay, it's very, sometimes they are rare to be seen lately, but there is this morphological look that make them very attractive to you. And that particular breed is very, very good for, it's very resistant to vulture. So they find it difficult to pick them up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we come to the end of today's production as we wait to see you in the part 2 of this training, where we are going to discuss about feeds, how to formulate our ration, what are the necessary requirements, and all the necessary things we need to know will be discussed tomorrow. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Abdulaziz, for this wonderful training. This segment, please welcome questions. You can use your chat box to ask your questions while we give answers to your questions. Oh, thank you, participants. Because of time factor, if you have any further questions, please you can forward to info@crowder.com. Please note the link to the test for today's training will be sent to you via Crowder email address. Please, I would like you to attend to the few questions that will be asked. At this moment, on behalf of Crowder Agricultural team, we would like to thank you for attending today's training. And I do hope you find the learning helpful until we meet again for the part 2, which is tomorrow for this training. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.